What it do, what it do, what it do, YouTube. Alright. We got Treyarch
Whilst we are
Zombies
waiting for
news
Treyarch's
on
next Call of Duty
COD
Zombies experience,
2024.
likely in
Let's go.
2024, there is a lot to discuss. In this video, I want to discuss what exactly is Black Site 13 and the further containment and the different fates of the Strike Team and the Requiem heads that were reprimanded at the end of Black Ops Cold War by the director of Requiem,
Oh,
Eddie.
you best believe I'm going back to Cold War very soon.
Richtofen. The Cold War Zombie story came to a shocking conclusion at the end of Forsaken, when the Strike Team and Requiem department heads were arrested with the closure of Requiem. The director, Eddie Richtofen, was very meticulous in making sure that all of the loose ends from Requiem were tied up, and that he would not have anyone left to foil his plans for Project Janus. However, there is one
Eddie
problem
really
he does
did.
not account for. Dr. William Peck had survived the gas line explosion in Forsaken and was plotting a scheme of his own. The only preview of this plan that we get is at the end of Forsaken's ending cutscene, where we get this teaser scene set 5 years after the events of Black Ops Cold War in the 90s, with Peck requesting a boat to take him to what is seemingly nothing in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, close to Japan, to look for
But aren't we gonna have a
some
Tfue?
old friends. This has led the zombies community to surmise the obvious. Peck is most likely about to break out the Requiem crew and Strike Team from prison to begin a path to take down the director. After all, since he was working as his mole in Omega throughout Cold War Zombies, since the director guaranteed his safety to the West following the events that transpired, he knows a lot more about Eddie than the other people, I guess, apart from Samantha Maxis, should she retain her memories. And he may be acting as a protagonist this
That's
time,
okay.
having a massive
Dark
change in his
ether
character
right
arc.
there.
However, in the midst of making this assumption, I believe we have quickly blown past an issue
Yeah, Samantha's in the dark ether as of the end of Forsaken.
that requires a bit more conversation and thought. Were the Strike Team and the Requiem heads even sent to the same facility? But before we get into the nitty gritty of this discussion though, I'd like to take a moment to share an awesome sponsored message for you.
Alright, we're gonna skip that little sponsored message.
While at first it seems obvious or very likely they were, the more you look into the details, the less clear this becomes. Our first clue to the fates of these characters lies in the Forsaken ending cutscene on the director's memo, and this reads, "Entity acquired, all breaches sealed, Max is locked within the
Janus,
dark
man?
ether. She's no
That's
longer a
gonna be
problem
big.
for Project
Project
Janus.
Janus.
Divert Strike Team to Black Site 13 for
Janus.
indefinite containment, and will shut down Requiem. Our agents can move on Weaver and the rest." Here it says that the Strike Team is being diverted to Black Site 13 for indefinite containment, but in the next line he goes on to say that the agents can move on Weaver and the rest. It is incredibly interesting that the fates of the Strike Team and Weaver and the rest, most likely the rest of the Requiem's department leads, are listed as two separate things. This, to me, implies that their fates may be different, but why would this be the case? They are both likely being held for similar reasons: their knowledge of the Dark Ether, its potential, and knowledge of the director. After all, we saw what happened to the CIA agents who accidentally stumbled along a dead drop that wasn't meant for them regarding Project Janus and the director of Requiem on Toten. They were killed by the robot Klaus. His anonymity is very important, likely because before the events of Cold War Zombies, where he obviously set up Requiem and placed himself as director, he was up to something, and that something is currently unknown, but it led to him being a target of an assassination attempt by Samantha Maxis and Weaver. But that assassination attempt went wrong, and it seems like he survived, which is why he is scarred on his eyebrow and throat and potentially other parts of his body. Weaver burnt the house to cover his tracks afterwards, which could have potentially accidentally killed his son and wife, and his son may now be trapped as an ethereal orb in the Dark Ether. But that's all been discussed in prior videos. Anyways, regarding all of this, there is one big difference between the Strike Team and the Requiem heads. Requiem Strike Team has been exposed to massive amounts of Ethereum throughout the DLC season, and we have various intel about this. We hear, after crafting the Pack-a-Punch and D-Machine from various Requiem heads, that exposure to Ethereum, especially crossing over like we do in that map, and Outbreak is incredibly likely to cause side effects in people. While most exposed people suffer from sickness, delusion, mutations, or death as a side effect according to the studies of Omega Group, there are seemingly those who are affected in other ways. For instance, we know what happened to Samantha Maxis when she was exposed to the dark ether for an extended period of time, and while she did develop amnesia, she also gained incredible psychic powers that she learned to control. So what do we know about what Black Site 13 actually is? Right now, not very much. The only time the name is ever mentioned across Mogual's intel is in this one cutscene. We can, however, take a look at some other facilities that the director has used in Cold War and make some inferences from there. Let's start with the most obvious, the prison known as Block 8. Block 8 is the facility where Samantha Maxis was sent after her recovery in Firebase C and time in Requiem's medical facilities. We get more information from a radio from Dr. Gray while she takes Not So Fluffy, Samantha's dog, for a walk.
Hey Strike Team, how you all doing? Sorry, just realised you can't really tell me. This communication is one way only. Hey girl, what are you getting your nose into now? You probably knew from the start that I wasn't real military. Never did any PT, never held a gun. Don't think I'm cut out for it, to be honest. Hey, it's just a squirrel. Sorry, I'm walking not so. That's Sam's dog, in case you didn't know. You might have thought walking not so meant I was walking in some weird, funny way. Speaking of Sam, Maxis, I've not seen her in a little while, but Weaver said she's doing well.
Then I just caught
She's in Block 8.
Advanced Warfare. So we got a lot of zombies to play, man.
She's a strong girl. Woman. Not just strong. She's powerful. Ever since she came back from the dark ether, she's had these powers. She can move things. I know we can all do that, but I mean, she can do it without actually touching them. It's like if she really, really concentrates, she can just make things happen. I think we all wish we could do that. I know I do. Come on, Notso. Time to go home.
That's
Block 8 is mentioned in a handful of other intel as well and is referred to as a testing facility. However, this facility keeps its subjects in handcuffs and experiments on them against their will, so it seems much more like a prison. We also hear of an isolation ward, limited time allowed outside, and extremely supervised meal plans. The director uses Maxis' time there to help her draw out and learn to control her powers, with the understanding that this building is certainly a prison made to experiment on powerful, perhaps all Ethereum exposed individuals. With that in mind, what does that mean for Black Site 13? Could it be that the Strike Team has been put into indefinite containment to observe the effects that Ethereum exposure has on them? And could the Requiem department head's lack of exposure be leading them to a different fate? And if so, which one does Dr. Peck intend to rescue? And the scariest question of all, if only one is going to get rescued, what is going to happen to the other group? But what this could mean is that the Strike Team, the operators, due to high levels of exposure to Ethereum, might be able to harness dark ether powers. Now, unfortunately, due to game limitations, they're probably not going to give us any crazy powers. So instead of us having the ones, which simply took the dark ether powers that's the same as the dark ether artifacts that we used in Vanguard Zombies, maybe the operators, the Strike Team this time, will just be able to use the powers just like with the artifacts, but just straight from their mind. They might not need some other device or artifact to be able to use these powers. And this could be the new field upgrade system in COD 2024 Zombies. And maybe these powers could be slightly stronger than the versions that we saw in Vanguard and Cold War Zombies, if it is something coming from them themselves. Of course, other characters like Peck have also had quite high levels of Ethereum exposure. So we'll have to see how this all pans out. Let me know in the comment section down below, what exactly do you think is going to happen to the other group who doesn't get rescued by Dr. Peck? Do you think he's only rescuing one? We'll have to wait and see. I am hoping that in COD 2024 Zombies we do get a main crew as well as being able to choose the operators in a similar system like we got with World War II Zombies, where maybe you can unlock the operators, although I don't think they're going to do that because they make so much money on microtransaction sales. But I just want to see a main crew. For example, we could see Dr. Peck, Weaver.
About the microtransaction. We'll leave it at that, folks. 2024 Zombies unveiled. Your boy Tony Vogue.